quick recap of Saturday's college football action and my top 16 Sweet 16 teams for the college basketball season. Hold on to your seat ploppers. It's the Michael Welch Podcast.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny. Daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty. Level up and watch that beater turn into a Bentley. See I'm stunning something, all I'm thinking, please don't tell me. Oh boy, she was seeing you until she...
All right, another week where we were set up for upsets heading into the final stretch of the season over Thanksgiving weekend before conference championship games, and yet again, disappointed without some major shakeups. We still had great football games, but not some of the big possible shakeups that we'd hoped for. So we had Oregon State ranked 11th, hosting number 5 Washington. That was one of the big games on the slate. 22-20 was the final there in sloppy Corvallis there that was rocking, but certainly the weather played a big part in this game. Beavers favored at home to be the Washington Huskies. We had snapping problems, over the head, too low, all over the place. One resulted in a safety early, which is what made the math funky on this one. We had a weird sequence where Washington was going in for a score in the first half, but had the ball punched out by Oregon State after a high snap on the next play. 2 plays later, Oregon State turning the ball over themselves after it was punched out. So just nonstop action in the first half, although it didn't result in a whole lot of scores. Penix's timing was off most of the first half, most of the game really. He had one shot where he threw it right to the defensive back's belly button because his man was off a beat. Chili's, the backup quarterback for Oregon State, came in for a drive and really screwed things up for the Beavers, just not able to get anything going. He was sacked, he was hit, he had a false start penalty, I believe, or a delay game penalty, that's what it was. And just not productive first half. It was 22-10 for Washington. They did not score in the second half at all. They had drives of 0 yards, -8 yards. They put up 60 yards of offense altogether, right around that number. In the second half, they just survived. They did miss a field goal in the third quarter after a Oregon State turnover. The Beavers put one solid drive together there. Obviously kicked a field goal to make the numbers what it was, but just a sloppy, kind of crappy, crummy game. Penix was off. DJ Ungalele was fine, but not particularly awesome. If this was a bright, sunny day, perhaps results would have been different, but this was still kind of sloppy. Martinez had 123 yards and 2 touchdowns for Oregon State, who really drained the clock there on that drive in the third quarter for a touchdown. Ungalele threw 2 picks, had less than 200 yards passing. Penix was all over the board. He finished here with 2 touchdowns, no picks, 5.8 yards per throw though, 13 for 28, no Heisman, big numbers there. Rome, his big receiver, had 7 catches for 106 and 2 touchdowns. He also had a receiver back for the first time for real action this year. I believe it was Giles Jackson that was out. So maybe they'll be better moving forward with that offense, but all kinds of problems here. Stick in the mud offense at times for Washington Huskies, but they survive again. A lot of credit for that. And if you look back at their schedule now, what they've gone through this year and what was projected, I mean, Boise State, at Michigan State, at Arizona, Oregon, at USC, Utah, at Oregon State now. I mean, that's phenomenal. Of course, we're going to look back and say, well, the defense had problems and this, that, and the other. But, if this team finishes as one of the top 4 in the final AP poll at the end of the year, I guess that'll be pretty successful. If they can make the playoffs, even better. Not everyone can quite make it that far, obviously, and we're really setting up here to have like 7 decent candidates to make the final 4 spots, and that'd be kind of a bummer. We'd like to see some car crashes to have it all set in our heads for clear-cut candidates. I can only think of 1 or 2 other times that we've had teams that sitting on the doorstep that didn't quite make it in. There's the Ohio State team. Was it the year they lost to Purdue on the road, were absolutely blown out? Was that the year they had 1 loss and were left on the doorstep? That's the only time I can remember. in our 10 years of a 4-team playoff that really had a team out that probably should have had a shot to be in, but we had 5 good candidates. So this could be only the second year that happens, just before we move to a much bigger expanded role here. But just a sloppy game. I mean, I'm adding a new category here when using an adjective to broadly describe how a football game went. And I started this last year when I was talking to a good friend of mine, and she asked me if it was a good football game. And I said, no. It's entertaining, though. It was the LSU Florida State game, not this year, but to open last season. And it was a sloppy game, turnovers, not great plays, some missed throws. And there was a lot of talent on the field, obviously. Jordan Travis, Jalen Daniels, last season, of course, not this year's version of them. Still talented players. And it was just a sloppy opening game. Brian Kelly's first year, Norvell had some expectations to have a good team. And it was a entertaining game, but not a good game. And now we have to add kind of a new category, I think, to that, which is just a competitive game. It wasn't entertaining. It wasn't good. It was just a competitive game. And this had its entertaining moments at time, but again, weather was a part of it. And I think this is after seeing Iowa, Illinois in the day for a little bit, that they more aptly fit that category. So in describing, I now have entertaining, just good, or competitive. And that's how I would more aptly describe this game, as more competitive than good football or even entertaining football at times. As again, Washington 0 points in the second half. Oregon State touchdown, field goal, scored in each quarter, but just a slop fest. And next up here, we have, of course, Texas at Iowa State is actually what I have next to my list here. First 10-win season since 2009 for Texas. 26-16 here. Offenses were bad in the first half. Texas got moving inside the 10 late in the second quarter, fumbled the ball away. That about sums it up. 6-3 at the half. 23-9 at the top of the fourth quarter. You're like, Texas is starting to pull it away. They got the ground game going a little bit thanks to C.J. Baxter there taking over the starting role after the injury to Brooks. He had 117 yards, but nothing particularly impressive from Ewers, as again, he's like at least a top 20 quarterback. I think that's agreeable for those that watch college football. But man, when you're talking about whether he's the top quarterback in the country, I just don't see it. Just like I don't see it from McCord from Ohio State. Doesn't mean he can't continue to develop into a great player. Of course, he'll probably be in the NFL sooner than later, but just missing something there. And that was apparent in this ball game. Iowa State rushes for 23 yards after sack yardage. Can't do anything on the ground against that great Texas front, which is keeping them in ball games. And when things aren't going around the offensive side, Iowa State converts a 4th and 1 with a fake run that turns into a pass to wide open, I believe he was an offensive lineman, not sure if it was tight end or not, to cut the lead to 7 in the fourth quarter there. But Texas just able to push the lead back out and get in front there. 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 5 accredited passes defended for Texas, 3 sacks, 6 tackles for losses, 3 passes defended for Iowa State, so they got after Texas as well. And again, both quarterbacks playing okay against good defenses, and a rather unexciting game there. Number 3, Michigan struggles to put away Maryland, 31-24. Michigan gets its 1,000th program win, although it's, of course, circulated around social media. If you've seen that they're counting a high school win from however long ago on that total. It obviously looked much better if they picked up the 1,000th win against Ohio State, or in the Big Ten Conference Championship game, or in the playoffs. So perhaps that should be reevaluated. Nevertheless, J.J. McCarthy sucked. 12 for 23, 141 yards, and a pick. I don't know what the deal is. Again, I think that they should allow him to throw when he doesn't need to in some of these other games to work these kinks out. Now he may have to throw to beat Ohio State, and I just don't know what's going on with that particular piece. Obviously, all the turmoil going on with the Michigan program, and I think if this season doesn't result in a national championship, regardless of how the play of the eliminating game goes, whether it's they don't make it into the playoffs for whether it's 2 losses or I guess they wouldn't make the Big Ten championship game. So a loss to Ohio State or whatever reason for poor play, they're eliminated from the playoffs or don't make the playoffs. They have the talent. So something's clearly going on with the coaching of that talent and the head coach, who's being suspended for 2 ridiculous violations, but are nevertheless rules that have been put in place and are supposedly violated by multiple teams, and it's a normal thing. Yet, Michigan's been arrogant enough to think that they can do these things, and they get caught. Is the arrogance is the point. And twice in one season, they're receiving punishment for those type of things. And it seems like the signal stealing thing is much, much bigger than most teams. Just a big deal. Just a big deal. And the evidence is still coming out. Speculation on a number of different things from the guys on the sideline spying and all the stuff. It's just ridiculous and arrogant. Because maybe other teams do side steal. I'm sure it happens. But to get caught doing it to such a grand scale is incredible. Same thing with talking to recruits on a dead period when you're not supposed to. I'm sure other teams did it. Arizona State was one of the teams. But to get caught doing it is ridiculous. To receive 2 punishments for this, 2 different things in the same year for things that other teams are probably doing but not get caught doing is just absurd. And that's certainly taking away from your team that has the talent to win a national championship. It is terribly upsetting and frustrating. And I blame Harbaugh for it. So, with that tangent out of the way, McCarthy, who was wearing one of the t-shirts, Free Harbaugh, or whatever bullshit they put on there this time, was 12 for 23 for 141 yards and a pick. They can't run the football. He didn't add anything moving in the pocket today. Corm and Edwards averaged, I think, 3.4 and 3.5 yards per carry each. Tulia helped them out through 2 picks and imploded as he usually does against good teams, 247 yards. Michigan logs 4 sacks and 2 safeties in this game. They aren't able to score on offense at all in the fourth quarter. They kind of chug along and manage to win it. 4 for 13 on third downs. I realize this is a road game. I realize this is a Maryland team that's well coached at times, but they also implode against better football teams, and this was bad by Michigan. It's not looking ahead to Ohio State or coming off of the Penn State game. It is lazy because when it's within 1 score of this, all you need is a bad bounce of the ball, and you can lose this game. This is bad. Not having Harbaugh on the field obviously can be a problem at times, burning timeouts you're not supposed to. We see that throughout the game. We saw it last week. But this was bad. This was a bad win. And I having some trouble remedying in my head that Michigan's just going to go and beat Ohio State again next week like it has the past 2 years because the template is the same, which is actually more of a shame on Ohio State, whose defense looks better, that front looks better. But I just don't know with Michigan. You would think they'd be able to do a similar thing, but the ground game does not quite look the same. J.J. McCarthy does not quite look the same, and the talent's still there. So what's different? That the coaching is all over the place because the coach isn't there, because the noise is there. So America's team has got some real fucking problems. Number 4, Florida State beats North Alabama 58-13. This wouldn't be on the radar. The box score, it's irrelevant. But North Alabama, the big pieces are North Alabama putting 2 long scoring drives together to take a 13-0 lead early. And Jordan Travis going down with a probably season-ending, I think it was an ankle injury. Did not look good. Things were not pointed the right direction. And this was all in the first quarter. And the 13-0 lead is probably not gonna pop up after the injury. But this was all in the first quarter. The backup, Tate Rodemaker, sucked. He's played before. He should have expected to play tonight. This was supposed to be a blowout, right? You should expect to come on the field, get some reps in, play like the whole fourth quarter at the very least. North Alabama is a bad FCS level team. The numbers will look good for him, but North Alabama put some pressure on him for at least a couple quarters. Didn't look super good. FSU had 5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, 5 accredited pass defended, forced 2 turnovers. But, all season, the back end of the defense doesn't look super great. The depth of the skill guys isn't great. Coleman from Michigan State transferred, of course, the wide receiver, and was supposed to be part of a great wide receiver group. And he is the wide receiver group for the most part. And you just have to think, Florida State's been talked about more about how they're not one of the top teams based on their schedule and how they've beaten LSU and Clemson, both who have taken their lumps, of course, this season. But there's been less discussion about how the talent of the team literally isn't there. They're not as talented as Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, or even some of the teams behind them, Alabama and Texas. The talent level literally is not there. So we can talk about strength of schedule, but at some point we have to look at how they'll look projected forward. And now that they don't have a starting quarterback, I think that they can lose at Florida next week, certainly. And Louisville's locked in the ACC championship game, so they could actually win both of them. I don't know what the spreads are going to be. I'm really interested to see that. But they could also slip in as the 4th seed to the playoffs and get dusted. So we'll see here. So let's transition here to Florida, playing at number 9 Missouri. 33-31 Missouri was the final. One of the better games of the day. Graham Mertz goes out late in the third quarter for the Florida Gators. Their backup, Max Brown, was pretty damn good. Ran a lot, made correct calls on the zone reads, made some big throws, had some great runs, set up what looked like the game-winning field goal for the Gators, although there was about a minute and a half, minute plus left when they kicked that field goal, and they were kind of running some time getting in position to do that. I don't know why teams don't go for scores in that particular position, because Missouri got the ball back, had time to go down the field, actually screwed around a little bit, ended up in a 4th and 17, but they still had a ability to put themselves in a position to kick a game-winning field goal. If you remember their kicker, they nicknamed him the Thick Kicker, or Thicker Kicker, kicked the longest field goal in college football history early in the season against Kansas State for the win. So they didn't have to go that far to kick a game-winning field goal. And Florida was content to give them a whole bunch of time and set up for a field goal themselves. But Florida takes the lead, gives the ball back to Missouri. Missouri gets jammed up on a 4th and 17, and then the Gators just fall the hell asleep. They give up 3 huge catches to not only allow the 4th and 17 to convert into field goal range on plus territory for Missouri on the other side of the 50, and then give up 2 more big throws to get it all the way down. I think they might have been down inside the red zone at that particular point to set up about the easiest field goal ever for Missouri's kicker to win the ball game there. So Florida, just horrible decisions. Billy Napier, I don't expect him to be out there, of course. There's going to be a lot of speculation, but poor coaching and putting guys in bad positions has cost the team a lot. And we may get 2 backup quarterbacks for Florida and Florida State next week with questionable coaching decisions all over the place. So we'll see. Could be an interesting one next week. And Missouri might be the 4th best team. They can make a case. They're behind Georgia and Alabama if you're power ranking SEC teams. And depending on your LSU feelings, they might be above them as well. Great job by that football team. Number 10, Louisville outscored Miami 15-3 in the 4th quarter to win 38-31. They pulled that out. Big win for them there. 956 yards of offense in this game, just scoring all over. Miami had a few more yards there. Louisville actually had the only turnover of the game, yet they still managed to win it. Plummer was 24 for 37. Van Dyke was 24 for 39, but Plummer had 3 touchdowns and a pick versus 1 for Van Dyke. Both threw pretty well in this ball game. Louisville just ended up winning it in the end here. Miami, 2 for 1 selling tickets, and it was just about empty. So them and USC have pretty pathetic stadium attendance. We'll get to USC in just a minute, but that's a very sad state of affairs for a program trying to keep it together there. Miami's still bowl eligible, but just a poor... They're better than last year. They'll make a bowl game. Number 14, Oklahoma, over BYU, 31-24. Just a sluggish game. Dylan Gabriel, 2 touchdowns, 191 yards, and was hurt before half. So Jackson Arnold came in to play the second, but he threw 9 passes, 5 for 9. They kept it on the ground. Wasn't like they rolled up 200 yards, 300 yards, or anything like that. A pick 6 helped seal the deal for the Sooners, but this pretty much look like two mediocre average teams playing here, despite the fact that Oklahoma was up there at 14th. BYU also played its backup quarterback, Jake Retzlaff. 3 touchdowns for him, but he wasn't very good. Pick, he fumbled 4 times, lost 2 of them. Just a very gross game there in the noon window, I believe it was. And that leaves the Sooners still in the hunt to make the Big 12 Conference Championship game. Clemson hosted number 20 North Carolina and whooped them 31-20. Drake May was bad. 16 for 36, 209, 1 touchdown, a pick, ran for a few. Omarion Hampton, the running back there, looks fantastic. 179 rushing and 2 touchdowns. He's one of the better backs in the country. And, just about every team has a decent back at least. Will Shipley for Clemson, 7 yards per carry, 126 yards. He was back doing damage. Maffa and Klubnik each had a touchdown on the ground. But this game was another sick one. 5 turnovers, 17 penalties. Clemson held the ball twice as long. Gross game. Clemson, North Carolina should not be that gross, but both of these teams have real problems right now, and I don't know if they're not going to get figured out this year. Hopefully next year. We'll see. Mac Brown, I don't know what's going to happen with him. His defenses still suck. We obviously saw a little bit of improvement this year. Not today. Drake May will be gone. They can still recruit some skill guys. They're on the offensive side, but they've got real problems. And then Dabo will be a main talking point. So, number 21, Kansas State prevents number 25, Kansas, from converting a 4th down in the red zone late and holds on 31-27 against the 3rd string quarterback. I like Kansas State a lot. I think it's a very good football team, but Kansas might have the best coach in the country. You can make a case. They're now 7-4. Lance Leipold is doing a lot with a little. He's getting a little bit of talent in there, but it's not like they're crushing the recruiting classes. His top quarterback has played 3 games this year. They've got Iowa State at home. I'm sorry, it's Kansas State. They've got Cincinnati on the road next week. This was senior day, and they'll be in another bowl game. And he's just continuing to build a program there if he doesn't get hired away to somewhere else first. And Kansas State, Iowa State at home next year, still in the hunt to make the Big 12 Conference Championship. So right now, Texas is 7-1. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, all 6-2. So we could have a really interesting mix there for the conference championship game. Several teams in the hunt there still. And let's see, Oklahoma State. Yeah, Oklahoma State number 23 over Houston, 43-30. Oklahoma State was down at the half, outscored Houston 24-7 in the second. Ali Gordon, the second. 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6.6 yards per carry on 25 carries. They just could not stop the man. Alan Bowman, quarterback, 348 yards, 2 touchdowns. And again, they can still make the conference championship game. They eliminated Houston for being able to make a bowl. They are one of, 5 teams in the Big 12, 4 teams at the moment that are not making a bowl game. So it's a little dicey for that conference right now. The mediocrity is real. But a great job by Oklahoma State. Of course, they came out sluggish last week. It got completely crushed, unexpectedly, I would say, by UCF. That still has a good defense, and they came out sluggish in this one and managed to pull up. So much like a lot of the Big 12, they have their problems, but they overcame them in this one. So quick rundown here, the rest of the games. Number 1, Georgia comfortably beat number 18, Tennessee, 38-10. You think, hey, Georgia's playing a ranked team. This should be interesting. Not us that have been around for a minute. If you're looking for cracks, the Vols were able to run the ball a little bit, get some space against Georgia. We know the defensive line isn't the same, particularly with Jalen Carter now playing for the Eagles. They did break a 75-yard run in here and a couple longer ones in here as well. Georgia doesn't run the ball as well either, certainly not the big plays, but they do have Brock Bowers back, and that makes a difference. Carson Beck had another great game, 24 for 30, 298 and 3 touchdowns, top 5 quarterback in the country. Probably. Number 2, Ohio State crushed Minnesota 37-3. I think they had 13 points at half. They scored 24 in the second. Henderson at 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the offense. More than double Minnesota's total offensive output. Not impressive until that second half. And Marvin Harrison scored a touchdown late, but didn't do much of anything in this. and that's partially McCord's fault, I do believe. Minnesota's defense is not as good as last year, but is still a decent group. But still, McCord is a problem, not an asset. Number 6, Oregon crushes Arizona State 49-13. 400 yards and 6 touchdowns from Bo Nix. It's 34 total touchdowns on the season, and I think a couple picks. Didn't check on the fumbles, but he's the favorite for Heisman right now, overwhelmingly, and on DraftKings at least. So there's something for you. Still not sure that he should be the favorite. Alabama, number 8. They have a guy in the hunt for Heisman now, too, Milroe. 3 touchdowns, doesn't need to run in this one, 66-10 over Chattanooga. I watched 0 of this game. I've seen 0 highlights of this game, admittedly. I know nothing about this game, and I'm okay with that. Number 12, Penn State suffocates Rutgers 27-6. Drew Aller performs poorly, completing less than 50% of his passes before getting banged up, and the backup comes in. Penn State probably finish again with only losses to Michigan and Ohio State. I hope Drew Aller is better next year because it'd be nice to have another decent quarterback in the Big Ten at the very least. Number 13, Ole Miss blows out Louisiana Monroe, but they only averaged 3.4 yards a carry. Jackson Dart wins it by throwing 3 touchdowns for them. They have 8 penalties. It's still a sloppy 2-loss team in the top 15. Number 15, LSU pulls away from Georgia State after a 14-14 logjam early on. 56-14 is the final. Jaden Daniels plays this whole thing. He wants a Heisman. LSU wants to get him a Heisman. They're not playing for anything anymore. 509 total yards of offense and 8 touchdowns. I think he should be in the hunt, even if you're stat padding on some of this. It's kind of all over the board anyways when you consider some guys on good teams blowing people out don't even play fourth quarters. So they might be the best team, best player on the best team and have good stats, but they're not putting them up. So when you have a player that's really important to his team like this, that might be barely bill eligible anyways, when he's that talented and pushing his team for wins, even if they're not competing for playoffs or even a conference championship, then I'm fine with it. I'm kind of fine with it, quite honestly. It's all over the board anyways. Number 16, Iowa blows the doors off Illinois 15-13 to win the Big Ten West in another disgusting game. And they're celebrating and hugging and clapping and throwing water and Gatorade. And it's just disgusting. It spits in the face of everybody, quite frankly. To play the way they do and to make the agreements, hey, we're going to push the offense and make it better this year. We'll put it in your contract and fire you if it's not better for the sake of the fans. And then you don't do that and fire your son who's your offensive coordinator. It's just trash and gross. And you should celebrate like you play the game. You just boring and bland and just awful. Just awful. Just so you can go and get your ass kicked in the Big 12, Big 10 Conference Championship game again. Pac-12. Number 17, Arizona smashes number 22, Utah. 42-18. It's 28-7 at the half after 3 touchdowns in the first. Utah is 11 for 21 on third downs, but the per play yardage is awful. They have 2 big turnovers, so it's kind of death by 1,000 cuts with this team, which is what the offense has to be. But the defense cannot stop Arizona's bigger plays. The final yardage is pretty close, but Noah Fifta has just that big first quarter, and the Wildcats are now 8-3 after 2 wins not that long ago and an over-under coming into last year of like a game and a half. It was maybe 3.5 this year, somewhere around there. I could be wrong on that. But just a great coaching job by Judge there, and much like Kansas, just a place that's struggled and has a great coach in place right now. Hopefully Deion Sanders can do something similar for the state of Colorado. That'd be great. Number 19, Notre Dame ends Wake Forest's bowl hopes 45-7, 4 Hartman touchdowns. They double up on the trees there, and not much else to say about that one. Number 24, Tulane did itself a solid and blew out a bad American Conference team 24-8. But the offensive numbers aren't great. They're 3 for 11 on third down, 2.6 yards per carry. Matt Pratt, the quarterback who's been carrying them this season, is what pilots them to the end there. 3 touchdowns, I believe, for him. UTSA here, staying in the American. So Tulane, UTSA, and SMU are on the mix. So UTSA beats South Florida 49-21. Frank Harris has 623 yards of total offense in his final home game. Second most yardage in a game behind Jane Daniels' big performance last week. He has 6 touchdowns as well. I like this team, but the defense that was supposed to bring back a lot of veteran talent has struggled at times. In the non-conference, they certainly struggled against Houston, who they played much better against last year, although losing. They just barely beat Texas State, although I didn't realize initially that Texas State had brought in former Auburn quarterback TJ Finley, who was also part of the LSU Tigers years back. Yet he's still listed as a sophomore. 4th-year college player. I believe he's probably a graduate by now, yet he's still listed as a sophomore. That's how confusing these years are now. Anyways, UTSA, undefeated, play at Tulane next week. And the winner of that will go to the American Conference Championship game. SMU won a big game against Memphis, 38-34 to knock Memphis out of the race. They already had 1 loss. So UTSA, SMU, Tulane, all undefeated. SMU will host Navy at noon next week. If they win, they will be in as well, and those will be your American Conference Championship games. If SMU loses, the tiebreakers have got to be confusing because SMU hasn't played either team, but some combination of those 3 will be in the American Conference Championship, and it'll be juicy. I was trying to power rank those 3 teams in my head, and I initially had Tulane, UTSA, then SMU, but then I like the Roadrunners. I like them, even though it'd be difficult to win at Tulane, but if we're going neutral site games, I think the Roadrunners are a better team, but maybe they don't win at Tulane. However, their defense has been a problem. Tulane might be a better all-around team, but they're barely scraping by squads, so maybe it's UTSA, Tulane, SMU. But now I'm looking at SMU, and although they've given up some points the last 3 weeks, their defense has been pretty good, and their offense has been great. So maybe it's SMU 1, then Tulane 2, then UTSA. I don't know. We could have a great, interesting couple of weeks in the American Conference with those 3 teams there. Other games of note, Northwestern wins 23-15 over Purdue. A surprising bowl team here as they moved to 6-5. Their over-under was either 1.5, 2.5 here. It was bad, even with the firing of Fitzgerald, and just a shocking win. They'll go to a bowl game and be underdogs by like 3 touchdowns, but still, just a great win for Northwestern. Liberty's 11-0 after 49-25 UMass win. Not an awesome football team, and they give up points, obviously, to UMass, but 11-0. James Madison isn't undefeated after a 26-23 overtime loss to Appalachian State. Just a tough one. James Madison scores a touchdown, hits a 2-point conversion to tie with less than a minute, and they turn around and pick off Appalachian State to prevent them from setting up a late score. We go to overtime. James Madison hits a field goal. Appalachian State hits the touchdown, and that ends it. They have been denied the opportunity to go to the Sun Belt Conference Championship game and a bowl game. They've moved up from the FCS level from the FBS level to the FCS level, the highest level here. And that means that they're banned from going to conference championship games or bowls for like 3 years or 5 years or something crazy. I think it's 3 years. 5 seems too long. That's an odd number. But they're 2 years in now, and they're good. And this has caused problems both in football and college basketball before, where the much better team should be involved in the more rewarding activities, obviously. And we'll see if the NCAA decides to change their mind. I'm not sold on that, though. Butch Davis and Arkansas State had a rough start, but they're bowl eligible after covering a 3.5-point line by beating Texas State 77-31 in that game. UNLV continues its crazy run with a 31-27 win over Air Force. They're going to be in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. UNLV, the Runnin' Rebels. That was a wide open conference to begin the season, but they were not really in the 4 or 5 teams that could make it in. New Mexico State is 9-3 after going on the road to Auburn and beating the life out of them 31-10 all the way through. We know Auburn has problems on the offensive side of the football. We also know Hugh Freeze is a good coach, and they're playing at home, and they're still fighting for a bowl game, but they're late in the season. They should figure some things out. But no, the Fighting Jerry kills. A well-coached football team goes in and beats the shit out of them. They've got the Iron Bowl this upcoming week. Colorado's eviscerated by Washington State, last of all. 56-14. Sanders doesn't play in the second half. He's hurt. I was watching this game. I must have missed that part. That's fine. He may be banged up. He certainly leads the country, I think, still in sacks taken. We know the offensive line is a problem. I hope that's the case because, even in rebuilding that program, Deion Sanders isn't necessarily practicing what he's preaching. Washington State didn't play awesome, but Colorado looked like they played like they didn't have a game. If Shador's kind of sat out, that would not be a great sell. But, when you're got a big brand to sell and when you're winning, everyone loves you. But when you lose and you're kind of a sore loser, it's not great. They look undisciplined, like they're quitting. They're fighting Colorado, the Cougars on the field there. Hunter's out there fighting people, and he's someone who's played more snaps than anyone, which should be evaluated. And then to leave him out there in a blowout is just interesting. Lastly, UCLA shells USC 38-20 in a sad game that no one in LA seems to care about. Couldn't sell tickets. Might be Caleb Williams' last game. Might be Chip Kelly's last game. Rumored to be fired after this game if things went poorly. But he's had some decent teams, some decent rosters, some unfortunate luck here and there. Caleb Williams was 384, touchdown and a pick. Team couldn't run the ball at all. I think we had like 20 yards rushing, 23 yards after sack yardage. Garbers did make it in for UCLA. He was the quarterback. They've had like 3 guys injured. He had 3 touchdowns, but the ground game is where it was done. TJ Harden was the main offensive weapon, not Steele. Harden had 142 yards at 6.5 yards per pop. They were 13 for 20 on third down. They forced 3 USC turnovers. It was just a bludgeoning. You couldn't even see that in the box score. It was worse than that. And UCLA might have saved Chip Kelly's job. We'll see. Be nice if he could get the quarterback position up and going there with the young true freshman from Michigan who's in there this season. Get some of the positions figured out there. And we'll see about the noise at USC, who is not really that much better than they were before the change with Lincoln Riley. So he needs to play some defense at some point in his career. He's still a young coach. I think he's in his 40s now, but he certainly wasn't when he started at Oklahoma. And some things will need to change if he wants to stay in these higher profile jobs. Okay, so last of note here. Our conference championship games, a few of them we know who our participants are going to be. Conference USA is Liberty, who's no shock. We've had a lot of movement in that conference as people at the lower levels have moved around. And New Mexico State, that'll be a good game. I think we got a line on this already, just under 2 touchdowns Liberty's way, and I think that's too high. The MAC is going to be Toledo, Miami of Ohio. That's not shocking. Not at all. 2 good football teams there. The Sun Belt, we've got Troy, and we're waiting on the other end. ACC has got Louisville and Florida State. SEC has got Alabama, Georgia. ACC is not that. That's shocking. Florida State's not surprising. We were hoping maybe Miami or North Carolina would get something figured out. But Louisville had an easy schedule for those that were keeping an eye out in the preseason. Not too shocking that they made it work. The Big Ten, we know we have Iowa out of the West, and we're waiting on Michigan, Ohio State. And the Pac-12, we know that we will have Washington. We're waiting on our second participant. So the Big 12 is the only one that's up in the air right now completely as far as those 2 teams. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all we got. We're not quite sure about the Mountain West as of the moment or the American. So we got stuff still to decide here heading into Turkey Day weekend and Turkey Day. Of course, the Egg Bowl between Mississippi and Mississippi State is the only game played on Thanksgiving in college football. But I'll have the watch guide for the week and the weekend as far as football and basketball and what to keep an eye on coming up a little bit later in the week. All right, had to wet my beak there, but I have a top 16 at least for college football. My predictions here, projections going forward. I did 16 for the Sweet 16, of course. We always have some games breaking, funny ways, and teams unexpected making it that far. But I have a top 16. I did go all the way down to 32. I didn't just round it out to top 25. But anyways, and the number 16 spot, I do have the UCLA Bruins. They haven't really played anyone so far. They don't really shoot threes. They can't really hit threes. Adam Bana could win Player of the Year. He's averaging 18 points per game, 8.7 rebounds, over an assist, shooting 57% from the field. The big 6'10" listed forward there, certainly. And he's been very productive for the Bruins, as you can imagine. Again, this team's shooting only 24% from three, which is 332nd in the country out of 360-something Division I teams. So that is not good at all, but perhaps we will see that mark come up. If not, that's why they're ranked further down on this list. Again, no big teams on the radar so far. They do have Marquette coming up on Monday here. So I have them at the number 16 spot. Next up, I have the Arkansas Razorbacks, and they had a loss to UNC Greensboro, which does not look good, but Greensboro, after that win, has moved up into the top 100 per KenPom in the rankings. Tough loss there. No big wins on the schedule. They've got a couple big ones coming up, though. Stanford, Duke, Oklahoma. Notable games coming up. He does have more of a senior-heavy upper class heavy roster this year than he did last season, with a lot of good freshmen on that group. Khalif Battle at senior, 6'5", the point guard there, a very efficient shooter there, shooting over 40% from the three line. He does have Mr. Travion Brazil, who's been very good as a 6'10" sophomore. He has senior Eli Ellis as well there, shooting over 35% from three, 34% as a team from three, 58% from the field overall. They're also giving up a lot of threes too, but this is a team that could perhaps develop with that senior upper class leadership. Just a team right now in top 25 adjusted efficiency offense and top 50 defense that looks like it has room to grow under one of the best coaches in the country. My number 14 team is the Tennessee Volunteers. Top 5 defense right now, top 25 offense overall. Very good, effective defensive team. This has been a great defensive team as long as Rick Barnes has been there. It's been pushing further in the NCAA tournament and doing very well in the SEC ultimately after piling up wins. That's been problematic for them. They've got a Wisconsin W already on the board this season. They have some guys that can shoot the basketball, 37% overall from two, 53% from the field overall. And Dalton Connect, Joshua Jordan James, say that 3 times fast, Jordan Gainey. They have a number of productive players on here. Much better offensive team and just an excellent defense as well. They can do a little bit of everything, and they have got a very difficult SEC schedule. Kentucky looking a lot better than expected after having recruiting class kind of fall apart, then having some guys come back together into the fold and looking like a very good team. Texas A&M will be in the mix there. Arkansas, of course. Missouri might be decent. Texas A&M. So a lot of good teams there, but Tennessee, trusty Tennessee under Rick Barnes, looks like they should be one of the front runners. Again, at number 13, I have the North Carolina Tar Heels, of course, shipping out Caleb Love, who just clearly didn't fit that team anymore, and giving more opportunity for the rest of the squad to grow there under Hubert Davis. Of course, the ACC, I think 2-time player of the year at this point, Armani Bacot, it's still there. One of the most highest usage players in all of college basketball right now. Not a great 3-point shooter, doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but that's perfectly fine. A double-double machine. I'm not sure he's logged any this year off the top of my head here. but he's still a very efficient player, very efficient scorer, 6'11" man in there towards the basket, handful of blocks. And he's currently shooting over 60% from the field to lead this offense, which is, again, top 20 adjusted efficiency offense. Not an awesome three-point shooting team here. We could certainly see that trickle up. Good two-point shooting offense. It's going to go as he goes. Good defense. And Hubert Davis hopefully will get this team moving in the right direction. Not great schedule so far. It'll be another week here before they play some good teams. Tennessee, Florida State, Connecticut, Kentucky, Oklahoma, all in a row here after Thanksgiving. So look for that coming up. We'll see how good they are. RJ Davis is still there, playing very well. And they've got a couple freshmen. Elliot Cadul is very good. So we'll be able to see what this team is really made of coming up. Baylor is my number 12 on the docket. The offense is off the chart for this team again. This is a great offensive rebounding team as well. The defense is looking good. Top 25 adjusted. They've played Auburn so far. They beat Auburn close, and not too many other teams to note there. But another great team here for Mr. Scott Drew here. And he's got another freshman in Jacoby Walker, shooting over 47% from three and being a very effective player on the floor. Of course, he lost R.J. Cryer to Houston, who we'll get to in a second here. And just another very productive squad from him. Jalen Bridges, R.J. Dennis, Jaden Dunn, but just another great coach with another great team playing good offense, and I have them currently at my number 12 spot in what's going to be another very good Big 12 conference. I have Alabama playing very good offense as well. Again, the defense is there, I think, this year as well. Currently great metrics all over there. Number 2 in adjusted offense and effective field goal percentage, but that's what Nate Oates likes to do, push the ball, shoot a lot, almost 49% three-point shooting. That's third in the country. So we're going to have a whole lot of offense, a whole lot of shooting, and they're going to have a little defense to back it up as well. Not a strong strength of schedule so far. Indiana State, who's ranked 101st per KenPom, is the best win on the schedule so far. That was by 22 points. Senior-led Grant Nelson, Aaron Estrada, Mark Sears, some of the leaders on this team. 2 of them shooting over 56% from three. I got 4 guys shooting over 50% altogether. And just a great squad there for Alabama. Into number 10 spot, I do have Creighton. A lot expected from this team again this season. Top 5 in offense as well. Top 30 defense as well. Very good, effective offense and defense on both sides. A team that looks like they can rebound the ball as well. Great shooting team. Iowa, best win so far for this squad. And Trey Alexander has been a phenomenal player. Could be in the running for player of the year. You'll hear about that, certainly. Good shooter. Good at a lot of things. And player of the year candidate. Offense, defense, good conference. 1 win on the board so far. So Creighton under Greg McDermott is number 10 on my list. Number 9 is Texas. And Terry Rodney taking over that job full time. The offense is a little behind the defense, but the defense is top 10 in the country. Effective field goal percentage is top 10. The three-point shooting, offense, and defense is top 10, top 7 at the moment, if you want to be specific. Now, the strength of schedule is not very strong. The defense is ahead of the offense, and they've got tougher games coming up here. Louisville certainly isn't one of them. They have Marquette December 6th. Is one of the tougher games. And another team, senior heavy, Tyson Hunter's actually junior, but Max Albus, Ethan Horton, a couple great players there for this team. So we're going to have some leadership at that particular department. Brock Cunningham shooting 57% from three as well. Good in the blocks department. A very good effective field goal percentage shooter there, and the best on the team. So this is a squad that will get, again, more tests coming up, but so far looks like another great team in the Big 12. That is Texas. I have Kentucky up there at number 8 after the great showing against Kansas where they had like 3 centers out, just a whole bunch of guys, and we're still very productive. Still not sure who the best player on that team is. Justin Edwards has looked great. DJ Wagner and Reed Shepard, all freshmen at various levels of production. Continuing to watch this team will be great. Austin Reeves is a senior who's producing. Dre Mitchell. We are long away from the teams that are just all freshmen for Kentucky or rolling in 2 full lineups of guys. It's a mix of upperclassmen now and freshman talent, and that's another one of these squads. Top 10 offense at the moment, at least in adjusted efficiency. It's much lower in effective field goals. But again, we got injuries all over the place here. Defense isn't bad, and they can rebound. They don't turn the ball over. They're playing good defense. They're shooting well, and again, a lot of talent out. They're playing small. Close game against Kansas, and some other decent games coming up. St. Joseph's, Miami, Florida, and a little bit into December, North Carolina. So not the most difficult non-conference schedule, really, compared to some teams. They got big names on the board, but getting into conference play, we'll see a few more names on the board, and we'll see how some of these young guys produce. This could be a very exciting Kentucky team. I have them very high because I expect them to do great things. I do have UConn number 7. Lost some personnel, obviously, after winning the national championship, but they do return Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer's in the mix. They do have a new freshman in Solomon Ball, who's been playing very well, and this is just a good ball club. Top 10 again. Offense and defense haven't played a difficult schedule so far. One of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, and good in most metrics. I mean, they're shooting 73% from 2-point percentage right now. I believe they just beat Indiana as I'm finishing up this recording right now. Just a very good basketball team. They will continue to be. They've still got a lot of talent in there for Coach Dan Hurley. Next up, I do have Arizona at number 6 spot. They managed to beat Duke on the road. True road game the other week. Tommy Lloyd's got things really rolling here in his second season. Top 10 offense, top 10 defense as far as adjusted efficiency. Pull down the effective field goal percentage a bit for defense and offense. One of the best offensive rebounding teams offensively and then defensively. Forcing turnovers, 40% from 3. Great 2-point per shooting team. Good on the defensive metrics for the most part on shooting. And just a really good basketball team. Now, Caleb Love did end up here, and so far he's not been like a superstar by most metrics, but he hasn't been hurting the team by any stretch of the imagination. Keyshawn Johnson has been a great senior to help lead this team as well. We got Kalen Boswell, a young sophomore, who stepped up, shooting 66% from 3. Powell Larson and Jaden Broadley, another great underclassman who stepped up as well. This is a team that's got a little size to it, as does Creighton and Alabama and UCLA. And this is going to be just another really great team there for Tommy Lloyd. At the number 5 spot, I do have Duke. Number 20 in adjusted offensive and defensive efficiencies. Shooting well from the field, 60% from 2. Solid 3-point and free throw shooting team. Good defensive metrics, all things considered, which is that they played Bucknell and Dartmouth. However, they also played Michigan State, which obviously they can't shoot very well at all, which is in part due to defense and their own inefficiencies on offense. And they did lose to Arizona at home, but this is still a basketball team with a lot of promise here. Kyle Filipowski has been one of the top players in the country so far for the Blue Devils. The 7-footer is averaging 18.8 points per game, over 7 rebounds, and shooting 57% from the field. Just very effective there, and been a great anchor for the Blue Devils and what they're trying to do there. And just another top recruiting class there. And even as the changeover went to John Schreier there, and he's doing a great job. Great coach, doing good things. Jared McCain, one of the freshmen, is doing a great job. Caleb Foster shooting well as well. Tyler Proctor, the sophomore, in there, and just a great lineup there for the Blue Duke Blue Devils would be great to see them continue to develop. They've got, a couple easier ones here before playing Arkansas, Georgia Tech after Thanksgiving here. I do have teams that I'd consider Final Four. I moved Marquette up there. Top 10 offense right now. Good on the defensive side of things. Not a great free throw shooting team. That's a problem. 58% from 2, 37% from 3, doing a good job keeping those numbers suppressed, under 30 and 43% from 3 and 2. On the defensive side of things, they do not turn the ball over. And this is just a solid roster that's been put together by Shaka Smart, and it's still Shaka-ing to me to see him with hair sometimes on the sidelines. Nevertheless, a good lineup here. Senior, Tyler Kolek. Junior, Cam Jones. Senior, Osei Adagaru. I think I said that right. David Joplin, the junior. Sophomore, Chase Ross in the mix. And just a great team here. Scores, plays good defense. Doesn't hold on to the ball very long, pushes it a little bit. And just a great basketball team here. They do have UCLA coming up. That'll be the first big game they have on the schedule. Wisconsin, Texas, and Notre Dame within a week of each other in the same week there in the first week of December. So they'll have some more interesting games coming up, but we'll see what Shaka Smart and the Marquette Golden Eagles can certainly mix up. We do have Kansas here at number 3 for, I think, fairly obvious reasons. They're Kansas. Defense is one of the best in the country. Offense is one of the best in the country. They did, of course, bring in Mr. Hunter Dickinson from Michigan. I think he's still problematic at times. Sometimes the offenses seem to lose flow around him. Plenty of offenses can operate with a center in there, though, and he can step out and shoot as well. He had a 20-20 game the other night against Kentucky in that big win, but he's the only player averaging close to 20 points per game. He's clearly the leader on that squad, despite a number of talented players, and perhaps the best coach in college basketball right now, who thankfully won his second title last season. Number 2 and number 1. I have Purdue number 2, and I actually have Houston all the way up there at number 1, with Ralph Sampson winning his first national championship. Now, Purdue losing in the first round last year is causing a lot of unnecessary skepticism. This is still a very good basketball team. Zach Edey could win Player of the Year again, though voters may not give him that opportunity. 20 points, 10 rebounds a game, 2 assists, 3.7 blocks, 61% from the field, 80% from the 3 line. You have to remember that 2 of these guards were freshmen last year that were playing pivotal roles. Braden Smith was one of those guys. He's currently averaging 11.7 points per game. Braden Smith. Yeah, Braden Smith is currently averaging 11.7 points per game. 6 rebounds, over 8 assists, shooting 50% from the field. Now that he is a sophomore, they also have Fletcher Lawyer, who's back, of course. He's 6'4", a little bigger there. 8 points, 3 rebounds, having a little bit harder time shooting. They have a freshman in the mix in Miles Colvin, who's 6'5", 8 points per game, shooting a high percentage from the floor as well. So he's in the mix a bunch there. Lance Jones is a senior who's averaging almost 10 points. Couple rebounds, few assists a game as well. Not shooting so great from the floor as well there. But still, number 1 in offense is the Purdue Boilermakers. Just a great team. Still centered around Mr. Edey and just some guard play that's got to solidify a little bit. But has come up from the young guys they were starting last year. They were not expected to be in the position they were last season. And if you remember, they still lost 3 of 6 games heading into the the NCAA tournament run there. They lost to Indiana, Maryland, and Northwestern in close games. They won a close one against Wisconsin and Illinois. They hammered Ohio State and then ran through the conference tournament there, beating Rutgers, Ohio State, and a surprise Penn State team by 2 points. So despite the great record throughout the regular season, this was still a team that did have some issues, did have some flaws. So the Fairhigh Dickinson thing was still a bit of a shock, of course, to a team that ultimately was ranked, I think, 265 here per KenPom. But still, to not see improvement and to not expect that, and to see a team that really came a long way last season and has a great coach there in Matt Painter is kind of absolutely crazy. And to not think this team could be in the mix again, especially with a Player of the Year candidate. Top 25 defense, adjusted efficiency, top 10 offense. The numbers come a bit down in effective ratings there. Top offensive rebounding team on both sides of the basketball, especially with Edey on the floor. 3-point shooting again, down a little bit. As I stated, with some of the shooting problems there, below average, 32%. Good 3-point shooting defense. 2-point shooting both sides of the ball is good. A decent free throw shooting team. Could be a little bit better at shot blocking, but still some problems here. But Zach Edey's great. Some of these guys are still young and need to meld in a little bit, but this is not going to be a first-round exit team, and I think they can win the national championship this year. You have to remember Virginia, how they were mocked, and they were had the doors blown off them, and they're lost to a 16 seed. They were without DeAndre Hunter, however, their top player on both sides of the ball, really. The season that they lost and then turned around and won the national championship. Purdue's template isn't quite the same. They had a nice, healthy roster. It's just young, and I think that we're going to see that kind of develop this year. Again, a little ambitious to put them too, especially over Kansas, maybe a Duke team that develops with a lot of talent, even like a Kentucky team, a talented UConn team. But still, I'm going to shoot them right up there, the number 2. Edey's very important to this, of course. Health to your important players is how you win the game. But I'm going to put them up there in the national championship game, but I think Houston wins it. Top defense, again, very good. Top 15 offense, again. They play a very slow pace, which is hard to win with, but Virginia's obviously done it. Wisconsin's been close. Very good on both sides of the basketball. RJ Cryer transferred in, just moved over from Waco to Houston in order to play ball here for Rolf Sampson to help add to the offense there, give him a little bit of a punch, which was still effective last year. It was just you need guys that can make big shots when you're in these kind of low-scoring, close games. He's the leading scorer at 15.4 points per game, almost 35% from 3. The leading 3-point shooter is actually Manuel Sharp at over 13 points per game, 38% from 3. Damian Dunn is averaging 46% from 3 overall. And just a team that's, of course, not going to score a whole lot of points. Of course, you have to remember they're in the Big 12 Conference this year as well. So we're going to see during the regular season how good this team is. They're favored to win most of their games this year per KenPom. So far, they've notched a nice win over what's supposed to be a top 40 Utah team so far this season. And games coming up. A good Dayton squad, Xavier. Then it kind of thins out until conference play, but still, they're going to play Kansas twice, Texas twice, Baylor, and it's going to be a tough sledding for this team. But we're going to see if this is the best team in the country, and I think that is entirely possible. They're going to rebound. They're going to not turn the ball over. They're going to force you into turnovers. They're going to shoot well. They're going to shut you down. They have guys that can score, and I think this is going to be the team that wins the national championship, despite the fact that you're going to hear talk about Kansas, maybe Duke in the mix, Connecticut again. I mean, it's a wide open field. So Kansas is going to be easily the teams talked about the most. I'm going to flip Houston right up to the top of that and take a little bit of a shot. I think that they have that opportunity. So my top 16, 1 Houston, 2 Purdue, 3 Kansas, 4 Marquette, 5 Duke, 6 Arizona, 7 UConn, 8 Kentucky, 9 Texas, 10 Creighton. Then I have 11 Alabama, 12 Baylor, 13 North Carolina, 14 Tennessee, 15 Arkansas, and 16 UCLA. Now, I did round out like a 32 in case I decided to deep dive that far, but it's just too early in the season, and some of these metrics are a little shaky. But I did kind of put a rough order together. I had Colorado at 17. They shoot over 50% from 3. It's wild. 3 different guys can do it. The offense looks great. The defense looks good. They haven't played anyone. They won't for a while, but I had them at the 17th spot right now. Can they maintain that? I mean, it's actually possible, I think. 18, I have Virginia, in part because they're just a veteran group. They beat Florida so far, top 5 to 10 defense in the country. The offense looks good, so I have them at 18. 19, Texas A&M, good offense, good defense. They can't hit threes, and I think that's going to be a problem for a lot of these teams. That's going to prevent them from advancing in the tournament and being a really top squad. They have wins over Ohio State and SMU so far, top 100 wins. Number 20, I had Miami. Great offense, top 10 3-point percentage. They have a Georgia win so far, which is all right. Number 21, I have USC. They're better on defense and offense, but Isaiah Collier is a true freshman, might be the best. Was top recruit coming in, might be one of the best players in the country overall, certainly a one and done. And a lot of the offense is going to run through him, and he doesn't shoot the three ball well, and he's a young guy. They lost to UC Irvine already. Number 22 is Illinois. Defense is great. Number 1 in fewest shot attempts allowed per game, so they're just going to really strangle you out on that shot clock. Close Marquette loss. Good team there. 23 is Memphis, a nice Missouri blowout win for them. Top 40 offense, defense, a good team there for Penny. Number 24, I had Michigan State. Again, can't shoot threes. Just not many guys that can produce offense right now. Tyson Walker busts, and I don't understand why. They bring a lot of guys back for Tom Izzo. He had an off season to figure this stuff out, so now that they're in play, they're just supposed to figure it out. I know he's Mr. March, and he's one of the best coaches in the game, period, in history, in part because he can actually develop throughout the season. That's something that's not all coaches can do. But you had an opportunity to figure this out. Have some good freshmen in the mix, but that's a big problem. Number 25, San Diego State. They've lost to BYU so far. They beat St. Mary's, so not a bad loss, a nice win, and they should be pretty good on both sides of the ball. Michigan has been shocking. I have them at 26. The defense isn't very good, but man, do they have shooters. You think it'd get worse with Chet leaving. Of course, Howard's son there, and oh man, the guy who transferred to Kansas, our big center friend there. But they're continuing to find guys, and they can shoot well. Will they continue? I don't know. Howard seems to have problems coaching, quite frankly. How you lose a potential player of the year that goes to Kansas, and you struggled to make the NCAA tournament for 2 years with him? I don't know. It seems problematic at the coaching level. Number 27, TCU, top 15 defense, good offense. Seems like we got a good squad there. Number 28 is Gonzaga. Now, they were supposed to take a backseat to St. Mary's this year for the first time really ever in Mark Few's coaching tenure there, but the offense might be like top 5 again. They've played only 2 games so far. They lost Steele Venters for the season, who's supposed to be a good contributor for them, but the defense looks good as well, so that might be a really good Bulldogs team again. 29 is BYU. They're good on both sides of the ball. They beat San Diego State. That might be a good team there. 30, I have Auburn. They lost close to Baylor. They're good on offense and defense, but they're just not super great at anything. I have Florida Atlantic here at number 31. They can't hit free throws. They took a bad Bryant loss, but they bring back all the experience from last year. And that's the kind of thing where even when you're in close games, you should be able to win, and they should have a better roster and experience. It just should amount to a team that's better than most out there. Even if it's, even if last year's wins overinflates their actual ability, their actual experience now and time spent together should actually lead to more wins relative to their ability as well. So it kind of goes both ways, I guess. And finally, 32, I put Villanova. Took a bad Penn loss, won a big blowout win over Maryland. So maybe it's more indicative of Maryland taking two big losses already early in the season. Kyle Neptune, not even sure if he'll keep the job if he has problems continuing moving forward. But Justin Moore's back after being banged up last season. He's averaging 16 points per game, shooting 44% from the field, which isn't awesome. Almost 4 rebounds, 2 assists per game. It's a little lower than you'd like, but he could single-handedly guide this team to a handful of wins and be a very productive player for them. They have some talent here. They're actually not too bad on either side of the basketball. Top 25 offense, at least a top 50 defense in adjusted metrics. They are not a bad shooting team at all, and pretty good at clamping down the 2-point shooting right now on the defensive end. And this is just a team that could win some games if they have some competent coaching. I don't think the roster is too bad at all. So we'll see. The Big East is still going to be a competitive squad, a competitive group of squads as it was last year. Creighton's in the mix there. Xavier might be good. Of course, St. John's being rebuilt by Patino. Butler might be a little step forward this year. Providence might be all right. So we'll have to see about Villanova, but I have them rounding out my top 32 right now and moving forward. That is my not quite preseason top 16-32 for the college basketball season. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope to have the Thanksgiving weekend watch guide, basketball, football, the good stuff coming up with the holiday in the next couple days here. So keep tuned for that. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings. All my blessings, all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny. Daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty. Level up and watch that beat turn into a